looking at you, kid.
Perhaps it's just the themes of lost love and redemption that people respond to. It's a strange mix within that movie of personalities and story and music that seem to come together unexpectedly.
Casablanca has a great story, marvelous characters, interesting melodrama. The thing moves like gangbusters. The backdrop still works, even though it's dated, but it goes beyond that. It transcends the period.
It seems incredible now, but every major studio made a picture a week, 50 pictures a year. When we were shooting Casablanca, it was just one of the 50.
Hollywood, 1942. The studio system was at its peak. Samuel Goldwyn, David O. Selznick, Louis B. Mayer. These were the titans behind Hollywood's golden era and the greatest movies ever made. Over at Warner Brothers, studio chief Jack Warner certainly earned his place among these legendary movie moguls. And as his right-hand man, executive in charge of production, Hal B. Wallace.
Jack Warner made a lot of the financial decisions, of course, but Hal Wallace was the one that was running the studio. Wallace okayed every script, every makeup, every dress, every suit. In those days, the major studios were run like that. I think that it was very timely. It was in some ways almost a little ahead of its time, because most people in America didn't think of all the people that were stranded in various parts of the world trying to get out. And of course that gave the picture a real feeling of tension, and suddenly people realized what we were in the middle of. At the same time, there was a great deal of humor in it, which the Epsteins were too full.
I have to warn you, sir, I beseech you, this is a dangerous place full of vultures. Vultures everywhere. Thanks for everything. Goodbye. It has been a pleasure to meet you. I'm sorry.
What name brought you to Casablanca?
My health. I came to Casablanca for the waters.
The waters? What waters? We're in the desert.
I was misinformed.
That was my favorite line, because I think it summed up Bogart's character. The cynic, and there's a real piece of chutzpah, that line.
What is your nationality? I'm a drunkard. Same. You call the airport and let me hear you tell them. And remember, this gun is pointed right at your heart.
That is my least vulnerable spot.
How can he close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
The flashback sequence in Casablanca when they go to Paris, the entire thing is done almost entirely with music. And it's Steiner, of course, that wrote the music. He knew how to, he was a master at orchestration. He was a master at taking popular songs of the time and making them sound like they were written specifically for what he was doing.
Max Steiner was Hal Wallace's favorite composer. Indeed, he was everybody's favorite composer at Warner Brothers. His stunning score dominates the Paris flashback and sets the mood for one of the screen's greatest romances.
He was always on the cutting edge with all of his scores, and he had a great facility for working a tune into a picture. The way he worked in as time goes by, you hear fragments of it here and there, and it's really masterful what he did.
Time goes by. It was never, when it first came out in 1931, it was never a big hit. It did all right, but it wasn't a big hit. Of course, Casablanca gave it a renewed interest, and people, were suddenly aware of as time goes by. It still had a nostalgic quality about it, however, which was essential.
The picture was over, and they were saying that maybe Max would replace that song, as time goes by, with his own. But as it turned out, it was tied into the film so tightly that they would have had to have got Ingrid Bergman back. In the meantime, she had cut her hair, and so it just didn't work. And so finally, it ended up with As Time Goes By as the song.
I tried to stay away. I thought I would never see you again. That you are out of my life.
I can't possibly give you an objective opinion because it's impossible to see a movie with your mother in it and be objective. I have to be subjective. Of course, I think she looks ravishing in every scene.
There were a tremendous number of Bergman fans and Bogart fans. So, you know, people used to go to see stars in those days, not so much the picture. They would go for the star.
The stars were supported by a superlative backdrop, a stellar roll call of Hollywood's finest actors. Who can forget Sidney Greenstreet as the unscrupulous Ferrari?
It would take a miracle to get you out of Casablanca, and the Germans have outlawed miracles.
Peter Lorre as the scheming Ugarte.
Rick, hide me. Do something. You must help me, Rick. Do something. Rick!
Conrad Veidt as the villainous Strasser.
My dear mademoiselle, perhaps you have already observed that in Casablanca, human life is cheap.
Dooley Wilson as Rick's trusted friend.
How much trouble? Too much trouble. Well, now, don't you frown. Just knuckle down and knock on wood.
And the unflappable Claude Rains.
I've often speculated on why you don't return to America. Did you abscond with the church funds? Did you run off with the senator's wife? I like to think that you killed a man. It's the romantic in me.
This is a very exciting set because you had all types of actors, all types of uniforms. You had French sailors, French soldiers. You had America. It was a fantastic set to be working on.
Orchestrating the activity on the set was director Michael Curtiz. The king of Warner Brothers action pictures, Curtiz was the man behind such blockbusters as Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Welcome to Sherwood, my lady.
He came over from Europe because Warner's wanted somebody like Lubitsch, and he came in here with an accent, only his accent was so thick nobody knew what the hell he's talking about.
I liked Mike. I had great respect for him. And although I don't think he was one of the world's great directors to work with artists, he was technically as proficient a director as ever I've worked with.
Curtiz's use of shadow, camera movement, and his knack for rapid pacing all combined to give Casablanca the look that has become its trademark. Curtiz also proved himself to be adept at some classic Hollywood trickery.
That whole airport took place on a stage. We had a cutout plane, but the plane was in perspective. Mike said, you know, I'd like to have some mechanics working around the plane so it isn't just sitting there. And that's when we came to the conclusion that if you had a normal size individual by the plane, it would look ridiculous. So we ended up finding some midgets to portray the mechanics so that the whole thing was in perspective.
When I walked in there and looked out there and looked out through the hangar doors out to the field that they had and saw an airplane and people walking around, and the airplane was a cutout and the people were midgets, I said, I've seen everything. I've seen everything. It was fantastic.
I gave you the impression that I might be interested in helping Laszlo escape.
Because, my dear Ricky, I suspect that under that cynical shell, you're at heart a sentimentalist.
You knew how much I loved you. How much I still love you.